Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Athletes in Practice, where we talk with former college athletes who have taken their skills, drive, and discipline from the field into the world of medicine. I'm Hunter Engel, and today I'll be interviewing Michael Shields. Michael was a standout safety for Washington and Lee football team, where he was a four-year contributor, a team captain, and earned all ODAC honors. He racked up over 80 tackles in a single season and made key interceptions in high pressure moments and brought leadership to the defensive backfield. Michael also played for the Charlotte Country Day Buccaneers, where he graduated in 2014, team captain for lacrosse, basketball, football his senior year, and received all state honors in football as a junior and senior. And I just had to do that because we went to the same high school. Since graduating, Michael has stayed on the driven path. He's now a fourth year med student at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, where he's been involved in neurosurgery, urology, and kinesiology. But right now, he's at an away rotation in UNC in the urology department. And he's also worked as a medical assistant, spent some years volunteering in hospitals and youth programs throughout Virginia and North Carolina. All right, Michael, to start us off, can you kind of walk us through what you're doing now as a fourth year med student at VCU and how did you get to this point?
Yeah, well, thank you for that kind introduction, Hunter. You made me sound a lot more impressive than I am. But yeah, so I'm a fourth year student at VCU. I graduated from undergrad in 2018, and had originally planned to take a few years off and just work and kind of took a break from school. Um, and that 1 or 2 year break turned into a 4 year break. It took me three applications to get in, which, looking back on it, was pretty frustrating in the moment. But like now, I feel like I'm kind of where I'm supposed to be. I made some connections during those years that have helped me get to where I am now. And, just enjoying being kind of in the moment in the fourth year. Focused and doing on what I actually want to do with my future career, which for me is a residency in urology. So now just trying to figure out kind of where residency will be and where I want to go and working through that. But thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat.
Of course. So you just talked about how it kind of took you a couple years to get into med school, and I did a post-bac as well. So what were kind of the biggest challenges you faced as a pre-med student athlete, and how did you overcome that? And then you did a post-bac between undergrad and med school, and how did that time shape your path forward as well?
I think the biggest challenges during college and playing a sport were just managing all of the kind of extracurricular things. This school I went to is a pretty small school, and kind of attendance in classes was mandatory, and we were expected to be students first and then athletes on the side. And so just trying to balance that along with being involved in other organizations on campus, active social life, juggling all those things was tough. And I think ultimately I probably didn't do as well academically there as I could have had I just focused solely on my academics. And that kind of realization led me to do the post-bac program I did. I needed to boost my med school application a little bit, and kind of identifying the weakest part was some of my grades. And so I did this 1 year certificate program at VCU. That kind of what brought me to Richmond. And it was tough. It was a tough year. The classes were hard. They were taught by a lot of the same medical school professors we had. A lot of the lectures were the exact same as the ones they give the medical students. So it was kind of a way to bet on yourself and prove that you can handle the increased workload and the more complex, I guess, topics that are introduced in medical school. And so for me, I think just that adjustment, getting back into an academic setting after 2 years of working, was initially a little tricky, but then some of the, I guess, like time management and organization skills and treating academics like a job, really helped me, and I found some success during that year in that program, and
Mhm.
ultimately got into VCU after that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm very glad I did it, and it sort of led me to where I am now.
Yeah. I kind of did the same thing where I had a mediocre GPA and then I went to did my post back at UVA. Just focusing on academics was like a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And so what kind of was that transition like in terms of leaving football behind and then jumping into kind of real life? And then how was like the transition from school in the post back into medical school full time? And so just how was that transition both academically and personally?
Yeah. That first fall, not playing football was weird. I played football like every fall for probably like 14 years or 12 years or something like that. So having all that free time was nice. But you definitely do miss the camaraderie with your teammates and kind of just the ups and downs of a season. But my body I think is grateful that I'm no longer playing football. So that was a I think it's a transition that I was never going to play on Sundays. So I was happy that that time came. I really enjoyed working, looking at those first few years after school. Having like a structured 8 to 5 was nice. Being paid was really nice.
Mhm.
So I welcomed that transition. It was a kind of tricky at first going back into the academic setting. But I think I once I kind of figured out some of the time management, it made it a lot better. I was also it was a remote program because of COVID, so that had its own challenges, just not being in person. I'm very much like an in-person learner, and so that was tricky at first, but kind of once figured out how to adapt, it wasn't too bad. And
Mhm.
then the transition to medical school was actually pretty easy. I think this program it's pretty strenuous, and I'm sure the one you did at UVA is the same. But the success that if you are able to have success during that year, I think it correlates really well with success in medical school,
Mhm.
uh, due to some overlap of content, but also just treating academics like a job. And I had a lot of peers that went straight from undergrad or just took a year off. And they definitely struggled more in those early few months, just because you have a lot more free time. And if you're not diligent about using that time well, then you can kind of fall behind and get into some trouble. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
think it really helped me get off to a good start in school.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. It was definitely a hard process. I'm sure you guys lost some people along the way because we did as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost some pretty good friends, like just in terms of the program was a little bit too hard and they had to leave. But
Yeah.
if you
But
can,
you'd rather them find that out now versus like once you start medical school and you realize it's not for you.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So there are many skills student athletes build. So there's discipline, time management, and communication, which you were talking about in like the time management area. Are there any in particular that you think helped you stand out when you were applying to med school?
I think communication's a really big one. A lot. My experience so far in school has been there are a lot of people that aren't the best communicators out there that have found success academically, do well in med school, but some of the communication skills are lacking. And um, I think that like if you're able to communicate with people well and especially like there's so many moving parts in the process of applying to medical school, like with
Yeah.
just interviews and responding to emails and just the whole system is kind of a mess, but like you really have to be on top of communicating with everyone and be able to present yourself in the best way during those interview days.
Mhm.
And so kind of developing communication skills is really important there.
Mhm.
I mean, I think ultimately like the time management is the biggest. You're experiencing that now as you're like studying for the MCAT, like having to a structured day and really allocating your time like in a efficient manner
Yeah.
is pretty crucial to like success. And I'd say even like mental health, just like making sure you're not going crazy with
Yeah.
everything you have to do.
Yeah. So like kind of in that realm, have you ever shared an approach, habit, or mental skill from your sports background with colleagues who weren't athletes? If so, how did it impact the team dynamic?
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I personally prefer to study like in the mornings,
Mhm.
and I just feel more, I feel sharp and like I'm better suited for attacking my day if I get it started earlier versus like the end of the day. And so that was like typically I'd get up pretty early during the first few years of med school, and that's when I would do like a lot of my studying, just because I would feel pretty kind of gassed by the afternoon and like I
Mhm.
wasn't accomplishing as much. And so I tried sharing that with some of my med school classmates who are most of them are a few years younger than I am, and
Yeah.
that did not resonate great with some of those folks. They'd rather stay up late and study that way. But
Yeah.
I think just kind of getting my day started early and um, knocking out some important things
Mhm.
first thing really worked well for me. And I would recommend that to people. Another thing that was really helpful was I think most med schools are kind of transitioning to this or have been like this for a while is that class is pretty optional for the most part. It's either recorded on Zoom or some combination of the two. And so it's probably 75% of our class wouldn't be in person. And I was part of the 25% that was usually there. And I felt like I'm paying all this money to be there. I might as well do it in person. And I definitely think that kind of myself, along with my peers that were in person, definitely had more success. Um, and I mean, I think that's kind of sports ingrained that those, um, I guess that mindset in me when I was younger, just that you kind of show up, be in person, show up on time, don't be late. That way you can ask questions and just, I don't know, I feel that was really helpful for me too.
I'm the same way. I'm sure you got the like attendance award at school. I think I missed maybe one day of like middle school in my whole
Yeah.
career. So you had to show up. I mean, when I would go home, it would be like, okay, you have to read books if you're home. So I was
Yeah, I
like,
don't want to do that.
oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And I think just show like you were saying, just showing up on time and being present is pretty important and something that's probably kind of disappearing from
Mhm.
some future generations. Maybe I don't know. Sound like an old man, but
Yeah.
I think you'll find success if you're able to kind of be present and show up early and stuff. So.
And what were some of the habits that you said that some habits kept you sane? So what were some of the things that you kind of did outside of school that kept you going?
Yeah, I think having like I had a good group of friends that were non-medical school friends that just lucked out with having a group in Richmond.
Mhm.
And so having kind of that separate little world that's not just med school all the time
Mhm.
was really beneficial for me. Um, Being a former athlete, as I'm sure most of the people on this podcast will agree with, is just exercise. Like I would, if I didn't work out for a day or two, I'd feel like I'm starting to get a little mentally foggy. And so just trying to like maintain good physical health. And I think that correlated well with kind of mental health and doing well academically. So I think just having a good support system and just staying active and were the two biggest things I did to kind of keep myself on the mental highway that I needed to be on.
Okay, so shifting focus a little bit. So med school can both be competitive, but it can also be collaborative. In sports, you often compete with your teammates while working towards a common goal. So how do you navigate that same balance in medical school?
Yeah, I mean, I think most medical schools really strive to be collaborative environments, which is great because like the competing at this point is kind of in the past.
Mhm.
Like everyone's kind of in school now and on their own journeys. And so the collaborative nature of it is really nice. A lot of schools are just pass fail, um, at least in their like early years,
Mhm.
and then which kind of takes some of that competitive edge off. So I think the collaboration kind of comes naturally. Like you have these um, sessions where you work with other students and like people in other professional schools like nursing, PA, pharmacy, and stuff like that that really hammer home some of the collaboration that's necessary. But ultimately, like the reason we've found success in our athletic academic careers is due to like our competitiveness and drive to like do well. And so like it's important to maintain that. But I'd say it's more of a like competitive with yourself than with others, is what I've experienced with like myself and my peers.
Mhm.
Um, I think just trying to, set some standards for yourself, like goals, what you want to accomplish, and then just hold yourself to those, is important. But like not at the expense of your classmates, because there are people that were like that in my class, and that reflects pretty poorly on them, like in their character, if they're like constantly bringing down other people to try to elevate themselves. And it's pretty obvious, like especially in a medical setting, because it is a pretty like rigid system. So I think just, yeah, the collaboration's key, and then just focus on like your own drive and your own like intrinsic competitiveness.
The gunners, the gunners.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're everywhere. There's nothing wrong with being a gunner, just a gunner in a collaborative manner.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Was there ever a moment in your medical journey, school, work, volunteering, where you almost walked away or questioned if this was right for you? What helped push you through? Was it something internal like discipline or external like mentorship or support?
Yeah. I was after I had applied twice and didn't get in, and was on that third application. I had thoughts like, what if I don't get in this third time? And like, do I really want to go through this again? Like, prolong another year of potential earnings and life moments. And so that was probably like the biggest kind of inflection point, was getting in that third application cycle. But yeah, I'd had some thoughts about switching to the banking world. I think I had some conversations with some people in your family.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, ultimately it didn't work out that way, and for the best. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think that having a support system is huge. I have a really supportive family. I have a supportive fiance, who are all with me every step of the way, and encouraging me to, stick with it. Like, this is what I was called to do, and like in that, it would have been really hard without that support group. But then also, just like you were saying, the intrinsic drive, and just, this is the goal I set for myself, was to get into medical school, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so, um, what's another year in the grand scheme of 40 years of practicing medicine or whatnot? Like, it's just another year. So I think probably the biggest was the support system. It would have been really hard without that.
Got a good support system
So important.
that you need. And then, so kind of on that same thing. So even in a great career, we all make trade-offs. So what trade-offs have you made to stay on this path, and what makes it worth it for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of trade-offs. I feel like in medicine more than other professions. One, you're putting away years of making money. Like if you go straight from undergrad to through residency, that's 9 years of your life where you're not around 9 years of your life where you're not really making money. Again, you make some money as residents, but it's pretty,
You're
it's
getting
not a
paid by the government.
yeah, yeah. And you're working a lot. So I think that for some people, that's a huge turnoff. Just that if you're financially motivated to be a doctor, which some people may be, it really is not a good financial decision. So that's the biggest. I would say there will be fun social events that you'll have to miss out on because you have a test, or you have to work a weekend, family obligations you have to miss, which those hurt a little more, just because, and I think you're the same way. You love hanging out with your friends, your family, and kind of having to miss someone in that group, like a big moment for them, can feel hard. But like ultimately, like this is the path we've chosen, is to be doctors and to be there to treat and take care of other people, and it's part of the system. And so I think just kind of having the bigger picture in mind, it's just like it's one small blip on like the kind of a bigger career. Like though you can find ways to make it up to those other people
Yeah.
if you have to miss something of theirs. But yeah, it wasn't fun like saying no to like big trips with friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, weddings and birthdays, and
Yeah,
oh, my family's going to the beach, and you're just like, oh, okay, well,
yeah,
I'll check the group checks like this
yeah,
week.
right. And
Put me
like
in.
for me now, the wedding circuit's in full swing.
Yeah,
We have weddings every other weekend, it seems like, and so having to say no to some of those has been hard.
yeah.
Uh, but I've been surprised. I've been able to go and do more than I initially thought I'd be able to.
Mhm.
And I kind of attribute that to some like time management stuff that we talked about earlier, just like being able to be ahead of kind of the learning and staying on top of things. It frees up some time on the back end. So, but yeah.
That's a good. All right, wait. So we got one more question and then a piece of advice from you. All right. So, when was the last time that medicine didn't feel like work? When you were just totally in the flow and like you were in the zone? Um, what made that moment stand out, and did it remind you of how you used to feel on the field?
Wow. I don't think anything can make me feel like I did
Yeah.
on the field. Uh, but I would say this like current chapter of school that I'm in right now, doing these urology acting internships is what they're called. It's basically 1 month at a different academic institution, kind of like a job interview where you're working alongside the residents and the attendings there, and they kind of evaluating you, you're evaluating them to see if it'd be a good fit for residency. And they're long days that start pretty early in the morning. But I wake up every morning like really excited to go to work, or school or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's a pretty good sign that like this is what I'm meant to be, and I'm kind of in the groove. Like I have my alarm set for 4 a.m. every day, and like that to a lot of people would be like, "What are you doing? Like that's not worth it." But
Yeah.
I'm excited to like go to work with these people that I just met 2 weeks ago. I feel like I'm connecting with them. The learning opportunities at a new institution are great, and just kind of reinforcing some things that I've learned throughout my last 4 years. Just having the opportunity to do that. So I would say like really just this kind of fourth year diving into the specialty that you've chosen has been pretty refreshing, and I do feel like I'm in a groove. Not like I'm sitting
Yeah.
back there as a middle third cover three safety, but
Yeah.
it's pretty close second.
Throw it up the seam.
All right, dare you to.
All right. So, what is ADH? No,
Uh,
I'm just kidding.
Antidiuretic hormone? Is that what we're going for right
Yeah,
there?
I was going for that.
Nice.
If you could give just one piece of advice to current student athletes who want to become physicians, what would it be?
Oh, um, yeah, I would say that there's a lot that I could say, but one thing that I think really is important is like showing up and being accountable, especially as you kind of progress in your education. The first few years, you're kind of on your own, just in a preclinical setting, studying in classes and stuff. But once you actually get into that clinical environment, it is a very collaborative space, as we were talking about. And you the other students, the other doctors, the other nurses, everyone, is counting on you and relying on you to be there and kind of do what's best for your patient. And while your role is, it's you're a medical student, so it's not like you have that much power. But you would be surprised like by some of the responsibility they give students. And so I think just like being accountable for the rest of your team, and showing up on time, like being late is just like one of the worst looks there is. And I think most of the people that are on this podcast and are listening probably would agree with that. But yeah, so just like showing up on time, being there for the team, and really just being an accountable, reliable member. I think you'll find success in school and hopefully beyond.
Awesome. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time, your insight, and for being a role model to student athletes everywhere who want to serve in medicine. We are grateful to have had you on Athletes in Practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. It was great catching up with you.